Something very strange is going on and we need to talk about it. CNN is talking about gold. Yes, that CNN. The mainstream of the mainstream media. What does this mean when the Children's News Network, in our house, when we turn on our smart TV and I switch to kids programming for my 10-year-old daughters, the first thing that comes up, CNN. What does this mean that they're talking about gold and silver? We're going to dive into this article, we're going to tear it apart, and then we're going to put our heads together and figure out, is this a good thing for the price of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, or is it a bad thing that CNN is talking about gold? Let's go. Let's dive right into this article. Gold is shining once again. Notice they said once again, as investors bet that cooling inflation in the United States will slow the pace of Fed rate hikes and make the precious metals more attractive. What they forgot to mention in that little line was the fact that gold and silver are also excellent hedges against inflation. So as inflation's coming down, and that's supposedly, paradoxically good for the precious metals prices, it's also a fact that precious metals provide an excellent hedge against inflation, hold their value over long periods of time against deflating fiat unicorn fart dust currencies. They certainly didn't say that in the article. Investors tend to flock to assets that offer regular returns, such as government bonds, when interest rates are rising. Gold prices slumped in April of last year. Yeah, you don't need to tell us that, okay? As the U.S. Federal Reserve started to hike interest rates in a bid to tame runaway inflation. So yeah, the Fed raised rates, but what they forget to say is that it's not sustainable. Just one example of that. The U.S. government has $32 trillion in debt, much of which will need to be refinanced in the coming 3 to 5 years. The U.S. government can't afford these higher interest rates. It's becoming not possible for the whole system to work with higher rates. But the market is increasingly expecting the Fed to temper U.S. rate hikes as U.S. consumer prices slow, boosting demand for gold. Like we said before, they have to lower rates. It's the only way the bubblegum duct tape Ponzi fiat money scheme can survive. Despite optimism among investors, the Fed has not indicated a shift in policy. Minutes from the central bank's December meeting released last week stressed that substantially more evidence, quote unquote, was required for it to pivot, quote unquote, away from its path of further rate hikes. Yeah, that's hawk squawk. That's Jerome Powell and all of his minions, right? They're like 8 hawks sitting on a power line going squawk, squawk, squawk. That's all they can do at this point is squawk. And the market apparently, right, because the actual bond market that really sets interest rates is waking up to the fact that the Fed is just squawking at this point. Some countries are also beefing up gold reserves. Oh, really? Helping to push up prices. That effort has become easier in recent months as the value of the dollar has weakened, making it cheaper for countries outside the United States of America to buy gold. True, because if the dollar had continued to go up like it was, the world would have collapsed, right? The developing countries, many of them did collapse under the weight of the increasing dollar, but Europe and Asia were all suffering tremendously. The dollar could only go up so high before it unleashed an economic tsunami throughout the world. Hey, you. Yes, you. There's only one you, and you've decided right now to join me here in Ron's Basement. What an honor. We are like a sliver of the population. People that like to dig a little deeper, see the forest through the trees, look at things from a different perspective. It's important we stick together. I hope you feel comfortable here. I hope you feel like maybe you found a refuge, a little bit of a home away from home. Know that I'm always just a mouse click away. I honor the fact that you're here. If you get some value from the video, please subscribe right here. Give the video a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the comment section below. We want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. We all have different perspectives, and that's how we learn from each other. You don't have to agree with everything I say. Trust me, I oftentimes don't agree with everything I say. So tell us what you think, and let's get back to the video. Now we get some interesting quotes. Quote, "We are seeing a lot of physical buying of gold from central banks." Really? We didn't realize that. Maybe a record level of buying last year? Not surprisingly, a lot of it is from Russia and China. No way! And what about India? They imported like 350 million ounces of silver last year. You didn't talk about that now, did you? That's only like 35 or 40% of the entire world's mine output of silver for last year, but I digress. Countries that are keen to reduce their dependence on the U.S. dollar, yeah, right, because the U.S. has weaponized the U.S. dollar, and a lot of countries are afraid now that if they hold U.S. dollars, they could be sanctioned away or confiscated from them if they do the smallest thing that crosses the United States. And make sure you're sitting down when you hear this next one from CNN, because then they went on to say that investors also typically see gold as a safe haven during times of uncertainty. Boy, they are really feeding the herd right now. Gold is often seen as a good hedge against inflation. Yeah, we talked about that already, okay? Since it is tangible, scarce, and in theory holds its value. In theory? What are you talking about? In theory? Check the last 5,000 years. That's a pretty good time frame to check it against. I would say that's more than a theory. That's a fact. Here's your 30-second sales pitch and a way you can help support Ron's Basement. Do you have a child in your life that you sometimes have a hard time determining what to get as a gift? Does that child like Matchbox cars, Hot Wheel cars, boy or girl? Doesn't matter. Check out the Blue Track. It's like a 25-foot long, flexible track. It's been proven as educational, it's durable, and I can tell you from experience, was one of my daughter's favorite toys for years and years, and the added bonus is it's super easy to clean up. It's one piece. It's not like traditional Hot Wheel Matchbox tracks that are in a million pieces. You just roll this thing up when you're done, slide it under the couch, and trust me, the next day they're going to want to play with it again. You just unroll it and you're ready to go. I'll put a link to the Blue Track in the description of this video and the pinned comment. Check it out if you need a gift for a young child. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing that CNN is writing articles about gold? I think in the net of it, it's a positive, because we've talked about this many times before. We are just a sliver of the population that really understands precious metals. We're like 1 in 200 people. So if CNN spreads the word a little bit to the herd, maybe they should call it HNN, the Herd News Network. And just one of those 200 joins us. That makes 2 out of 200 people. That's twice as much people, money, capital within the precious metals sector. And we know that's going on around the world, right? We've heard about Russian citizens buying record amounts of gold. We know Chinese are buying gold. We know the Indians are buying gold. If America and Americans start to wake up just a little bit, because Americans are by far way light years behind the rest of the world when it comes to understanding the value of precious metals. And that's kind of ironic because it's written into our U.S. Constitution. But nonetheless, since about 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, there's been a concerted effort to steer Americans, often through the mainstream media, away from buying precious metals to protect their wealth. Because when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard, gold became kind of the enemy of the U.S. dollar, right? It was kind of like a divorce. Look, in the long run, we know the story, the theory, and the strong support in place for the price of precious metals. It's going to be an interesting ride as we head into the coming years and even decades. You know, I'll be here for you through it all, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you next time.